Hey, we're gonna walk in, so to speak. Walk over, look at this one. I don't know if you can see that one or not, but she has taken a pollen bath. You know something? Because look, we have our feeder going. Over here I'm using Ultra Bee right now. I'm getting ready to go to the bee store and pick up some supplies here in a little bit. But here we go. I put this out because Sunday is the 21st, and that is our winter solstice. So that means that's the shortest day of the year in terms of sunlight. And then from then on, we get more and more sunlight, which is a trigger for these bees to start their spring buildup, believe it or not, even though we've got cold weather coming. The winter solstice is the beginning of winter officially, but as you can see, what we got going right now is we've got our feeders, sugar water, 1-to-1, with Hive Alive in it, some apple cider vinegar, and some bee amino, which is a liquid protein. But I would say the Ultra Bee is about as popular, almost as popular as the sugar water. But it's 65 degrees right now. Thank goodness it was 32 this morning. Yesterday it was 19 in the morning, so we're having a warm-up now that the cold front is over, passed through, and now we're having a warm-up. The wind is shifted from the southwest instead of the northwest. And as you can see, we've got lots of bees working here. So we'll come back and visit this tomorrow and see how we're doing. Okay. Hey, Father Bill here for Father Bill's Backyard Bees, Sunday afternoon, and which is the time I like to make these videos. And outside, we're talking beautiful, sunny, 68 degrees. The bees are very active, as you could see in the first little clip of the bee feeder that I have outside. I like to feed from that feeder for lots of reasons, and we'll talk about that. And let's see what else. Look at my notes, and we'll talk about mainly right now, we're going to talk about protein and the solstice. Today is the winter solstice, shortest day, darkest day, as it were, in the year. That means the sunlight, between sunrise and sunset. That's the shortest time period. Beginning tomorrow, we'll see the daylight increasing slowly, gradually. But what's so important about the winter solstice is it is a trigger, a switch almost, as for our bees to realize that even though winter officially starts with that solstice, outside here in my neck of the woods, we're seeing dandelions already blooming. It won't be long before we'll see red maple and the blooms with red maple. Our camellia trees generally, some of them bloom right now. They had a tough time last week because it was so cold, but no, they'll get over that, and they're still producing buds, which will blossom. And that's a great source of nectar and pollen for our bees. So there are resources available out there. for the bees to go to. And they are. But what we like to do, what I like to do, is I like to put that group or community feeder out, and it's out and away from the bee yard. And I've developed over time, I've tried different techniques of feeding. If you've ever seen the 5-gallon buckets turned upside down and the holes that are drilled around the lid, I tried that. What happens is the first bees that get to the feeder end up getting killed because the bees come in on top of them, and they create these humongous pileups, and you end up with a lot of dead bees with that system. I tried some tubs of sugar water. I put in 5 gallons of sugar water in a tub, and I would I tried all kinds of crazy stuff. Put golf ball or the practice golf balls, which will float. I put a bunch of those in there to keep the bees from drowning. That didn't work very well. I've tried pine straw. I even bought some straw from the farm supply, some I guess it was wheat straw, and that worked okay. The bottom line is bees just don't handle water very well. They're not very good swimmers, and it's cold water, which is what they're going to encounter right now. That's going to drop their body temperature down pretty quick, and they're going to go right into that cold stupor or cold coma, as it's called. They're not dead, but they're on their way. And I've done this before just for the heck of it. I've found bees like that. I've brought them in the house, and I've put them in a jar with a lid with holes punched in, and I've watched them within an hour or two revive 100%. So the cold coma, they're not dead. And I've read where they'll stay alive for maybe 24 to 48 hours. It just depends on how cold it is. But anyway, bees don't do well with water and water feeders. But they do. I have tried other feeders. I've got a couple to show you. This is, some people call this a division board feeder. If you can see it, it inserts into your hive. It takes the space. This one is just 1 gallon, and it takes the space of one frame. And those are available from different sources. What I'll do at the end of this presentation is I will list in the comments places where you can get some of these different feeders and so forth. I'm not getting paid to make any endorsements. I don't sponsor any equipment, but this is just from my own experience. I don't use these anymore simply because, again, the bees that get down in there first often get trapped by more bees coming in, and you end up with a feeder full of dead bees. So I don't use those anymore. However, if you are using fondant in the winter, and you can take the inside of this out, and you can put that fondant patty inside this, and that will work. They won't drown with that. I don't recommend it. Now another one I use, the Easy Round, and here it is right here. Get a good look at it. These are available all over the place. I'll tell you where I got mine. Again, I'll put that in the comment section. It's got a lid to it, and in the winter, you can put this on top of your interior cover, and fill it full of sugar. Do a mountain camp type feeding, or in the regular season when you're feeding, use sugar water. However, again, they will drown. You put this cap over it. It sits in your hive like this, and they come up on the inside. And again, the first bees that get in there are the ones that get pushed down, and the other ones come up and push, and you end up with a whole bunch of drowned bees. So I don't know who it was that came up with this idea, but you take a sock, you cut some of the sock off, okay, the part that's up around your ankle and leg, and cotton sock is what I did, and then you put it around the feeder, and then this keeps the drowning down to a minimum, but they still drown. But in the winter, I know a lot of beekeepers that just put sugar in here, similar to that mountain camp, which I used to do, the mountain camp feeder, with the newspaper and then the sugar right on the newspaper. But what I've developed, along with another friend of mine, beekeeper, we've got these great big jars. These are 2-quart ball jars. You can see it. It's a biggie. And we get those at, I think it was at one of the major, well, Walmart. I don't know about the other places, but yeah, I've seen them in grocery stores. Actually, I take that back. I've seen them in just basic grocery stores. Now, the neat thing about this is the top is perforated, okay? And you can use, at this point, there's maybe a dozen holes in there, very small, but it's still large enough for the bee proboscis to go in there. And then you also have, we also have, let's see, certain times a year you only need 3 or 4 holes, and but this time of year with the feeding that's starting, we put a lot of holes in it. So there you go. That's what it looks like. Then it goes upside down. It goes upside down in our feeder, which we've made out of some old deck board, and I cut holes, appropriate size holes, as you saw in the first video, and you'll see in the second one. And the vacuum seals the sugar water uh, or sugar syrup inside of the jar, and then the bees come up and feed underneath, and they don't drown. But this is the only way I know to feed sugar water, sugar syrup, is by doing this. And by having it out in the community feeder, then any leakage isn't going to go dropping into the hive itself. So this is where we're transitioning. Right now, all of my bees, I've got 12 out of 18. I lost 3 this fall due to poisoning, and it was absolutely poisoning. We had colony super active, full of bees coming and going. One day, the very next day, nothing's happening. So I go in, and there's 2 to 3 inches of dead bees on the bottom board. And most of those bees have their tongues, their proboscis sticking out. And that is definitely a sign of poisoning. And so the problem where I live in the neighborhood, more and more of our neighbors are using the different lawn services and pest services, spray. And so when our bees go out, we just don't have control over where they're going. So we lost 3 that way, and then we had some queen issues, which we always do. Some of our queens are old, and that's because we've caught them in swarms. We don't know how old they are, but if they're good queens, we stick with them, and then lo and behold, along about August, September, they'd get superseded most often, and then the new queens never make it back, partly to all the dragonflies that we have around here. So anyway, but that's okay because we need the space, we need the equipment. We were talking, Steve and I were talking yesterday, doing a preliminary uh, guesswork on how many splits we'll be making in March, and it looks like we could almost be making anywhere between 10 and 20, and we don't have enough room for that many splits. nor equipment. So we definitely can handle 10 more, maybe 15 at the most. So we'll just wait and see. But nevertheless, with the feeding program, since solstice is happening as we speak, so to speak, since the solstice is happening, we are uh, getting ready, preparing, anticipating, it's a good word, for the spring buildup. And the buildup here starts way before spring. So that's sort of a misnomer. Maybe up north, I know your buildup would be more coincidental with spring, but down here, our spring buildup is going to start in about a month or so, because we'll get more and more weather in the 60s. We'll still get cold weather, yeah, absolutely, but we'll be getting more and more weather in the 60s, and the bees will be out, and and the queens will be laying, and most of that brood's going to survive. There are years in the past where some of our brood has not survived, because it got too cold too quick sometimes. But anyway, so our feeders, if you noticed, we put the pollen out. That protein is critical right now as we're going into the buildup. And I shouldn't even say spring buildup, I'll just say buildup, because down here it's buildup time. And that protein is there. The bees need it, the nurse bees need it to make um, royal jelly to feed the larvae and to feed the brood, the larvae, and make more beef. So that's critical too. So anyway, that that's why we put the pollen out, and boy, and they won't take it if they don't need it. By the way, and that's true about my sugar water too. They won't take it if they don't want it. They don't need it, and they're taking it. Okay, let me move on. I got one more thing to add. Don't want to run out of time, but way back when I was, well, I've been doing it for 40 years. I was a new wild turkey hunter. I've been turkey hunting for over 40 years now. Boy, it seemed like turkey hunting. We all had to have the latest gizmos and gadgets, and brand new turkey call, turkey decoys, turkey equipment, clothing, you name it. And a lot of times your success was based, well, most of the time your success is based on patience and then your experience as you gather more and more experience. The gadgets and gizmos, you know, I carry very few calls now, and gadgets and gizmos. You learn from experience. Well, beekeeping is very similar. There's always all sorts of new gadgets and gizmos. But in the case of winter beekeeping, uh, I went ahead, since we had some unusually cold weather, we had temperatures at night in the teens for about maybe 3 nights, maybe four. And that's unusual for this time of year. We usually can get that along about the end of January, 1st of February. But anyway, so we had a lot of concern. A lot of beekeepers were concerned about their bees. And as a result, uh, since we followed, I guess, Bill Heshbaugh's condensing hive idea, which is at the top of our hives, we put this double bubble, we call it double bubble. It's reflexic material. It looks like aluminum coated with a plastic interior. We put that on top to reflect the heat from the bees back down to where the cluster is, rather than losing it out the top. Now, ironically, we were taught early on in bee school to don't do anything like that. Rather, to take a popsicle stick or a twig and prop your your outer cover, prop that open for ventilation, because you didn't want the inner cover to gather condensation, which would then drip down on your bees. Well, turns out that if you use good insulation in the top, that's not going to happen. The hot air is going to stay with the cluster in the top. You're going to have condensation on the sides, but and we've been doing that now for several years. We haven't had a condensation problem. And I'll put that down in the comments too, where you can find Bill Heshbaugh's work on what he calls condensing hives. So we've been doing that, and that's been very effective. And also, we have the Hive Alive fondant. And again, I'm not, we don't sponsor it. We don't get any money for that. I don't get it for free, but we've switched over to using that fondant and have been very successful overwintering bees too. And again, that fondant's there for emergencies. When they run out of their food, their honey, then they've got an emergency supply. And the difference down here is our bees, compared to up north, our bees could go in and out of cluster. Up north, bees, if it's cold and continually cold, the bees go into cluster and they use less of those resources. That cluster will stay where the honey is and move slowly. I think I read where it may move, cluster may move 1 centimeter a day, or it could have been 1 millimeter. It's a very, very small distance each day as they're consuming that honey. So, but here, our bees on warm days, they're out foraging, and there is a little bit for them to forage. But that's why we do our feeding program and our group feeding, so to speak. That's why we do that, as well as feeding inside. But anyway, that's for another topic. But now back to gadgets and gizmos. All right, so here we go. The latest gadget gizmo, if you can see it, pretty spiffy. And if you know what that is, okay, we got this from, I guess I can say Amazon. There's several places where you can get these. Again, I'm not getting anything in return for this, but this is called a FLIR camera. And the FLIR camera is going to give us a picture, a heat signature of our beehives. So when it's 30 degrees outside, I can go out and look at the beehive, and it will tell me what the temperature is. It'll show me where the cluster is, and it'll tell me the temperature of the cluster. So it's been a lot of fun to use this. And let's see, let me see if I can get it to come on. See what give you a kind of an idea. Here we go. There we go. All righty. Okay, and then I'll turn it around so you can get a reading. Okay, and let's see if I can. There you go. That's outside. Let's see. But you can see it's a thermal imagery that you're getting, and it's going to tell you. Let me put my finger up there and see yeah. And it's going to give you a reading. Sorry about that. Should have practiced this. It's going to give you a reading. Okay. And the colors, basically, yellow is pretty warm. The red is, if you can see on the right-hand side, it gives you a gradient of temperatures. Anyway, so it's been a lot of fun. I've used this several times so far outside, checking with the bees and seeing what the temperature is. And so I remember in Bee Club, one of our senior members had talked about that and sort of said it was a waste of money that he didn't use it. But I thought, well, if it makes you feel better, if you think it's too cold and your bees are going to die, you can go out and you can take a picture, and you can look at your beehive, and you'll see the temperature. And remember, and I've said this many times, the cluster keeps itself warm. It doesn't warm the entire interior of the beehive, and heat rises, and so you're going to find, especially with that insulated top that we talk about, you're going to find your bees up top, and that's where you're going to see the heat signature, and it's going to be the warmth. It doesn't have to be 90 degrees. It can be, I was out one and I was getting 50-degree readings, which is fine. That's fine. They're surviving. They're doing great. 90 degrees, that's when they've got brood, and there have to be brood needs to stay 92 to 97, according to Cornell. And so 92 to 97 is your brood. But right now, it's not that much brood. But right now, if you've got 45, 50-degree cluster, you're doing good if it's really cold outside. So anyway, that sort of wraps it up. We're going to finish up. I'm going to show you a before. Well, you saw the before, which was the first several minutes of the feeder, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll show you what happened just in a couple of days. And otherwise, we hope you'll like and subscribe and watch more of our videos, and we'll talk to you later, and have a good week of beekeeping ahead. Enjoy the solstice. Okay, I wanted to get out here before it rained, and the roof over here on the pollen feeder sort of tilted over, but that's okay, because if you look inside, the pollen almost gone. Pollen substitute, it's Ultra B is what we're using, and I'm not getting any financial support or anything from Ultra B company. Just need to make sure we're clear on that. But I'm just saying that's what I bought at the bee store, our local bee store. So they seem to be utilizing the pollen substitute just as much as the sugar water, which is kind of neat. I'll do this with 65 degrees. I should have mentioned that today. 65, and it's gonna rain. It's supposed to rain, and I think it's gonna rain. So I wanted to get out here and shoot a couple of minutes of the bees ahead of time. And what's going on is the protein from the pollen substitute. That's what that's all about. They're gathering that and bringing that back to the hives to store, because they're needing protein just as much as over here needing carbohydrates, sugar water. And so then I had bees. You notice I have a bird bath, and the bees were drinking water bees, taking that back, and I'm sure they were using that water to thin out the honey that they have over there, because that's there's no need for them to to use the water to cool off the hives, not when it's 20 degrees in the morning, 60 degrees in the afternoon, not in the middle of winter. So anyway, this is what we got going on. I'll come back out tomorrow and refill the pollen. I kind of like that slanted roof. I might do that. That way when the wind blows from the northwest, it will be sort of like an airplane wing. It will be a wing facing the wind, so the top won't blow away or blow off. So anyway, that's what we got right now, and we'll come back. We'll keep track the next few days, as long as it stays in the 60s, 50, 55, 60. I'll keep feeding them, and that way they'll have the carbohydrates and proteins they need. Because Sunday, and I'll mention this in my introduction, this coming Sunday will be the winter solstice, December 21st, the first day of winter, but also the shortest daylight day of the year. And from then on, each day will be daylight a little bit longer. And of course, all of the critters, the bees and the birds and the plants, that will be a trigger for them to get ready for the spring and the spring buildup. So I think we're getting a little bit of an advanced preview of what's gonna happen in the next weeks. So anyway, we'll check these later.